Hi, I'm James. I run Magitone. I've just released my first plugin, DreamKit Zenith, a drum-based synth. This video is looking at the next part of that series, a kit, where we're looking at building a new drum sample instrument. My goal is all of my favourite drums, mics and room all in one place with lots of options. Just quick and great drum sounds. In this video we're going to look at the drums I've recorded so far. At this point everything you hear is a desk mix on the SSL E series at Otterhead. I love drum sound and definitely lean more towards the esoteric in my choices. But I want this instrument to be flexible, giving me and hopefully you lots of options of great sounding drums. This is likely to be a long process and I'm going to document it along the way. As I mentioned in the last video, my original idea was to recreate the Gretsch 1977 catalogue in software form. This obviously ticks my drum nerd box, but I realised this wasn't how I use drums or drum samples. I rarely use a preset kit, so making one seemed a bit silly. At the time of recording the first session, I still had this idea, so I recorded each kit separately in the different configurations offered in the catalogue. Kit 1 is the Name Band 2 configuration. (13 and 16-inch toms, a 22-inch kick drum, and a 14x5 chrome over brass Gretsch 4160 snare. An AKG D25, FET 47. This top mic was a Cowrec. Got a KM84 on the bottom. I use these on snare. They're just amazing. I used to really like using KM84s, which are these microphones. KM84Is, sorry, beg your pardon. They're incredible, great, they sound great. But there's something about these Cowrecs that just sound phenomenal. So mixing for samples is a little bit different than mixing for like release, because one, everybody's hearing every sound in isolation. Like you're going to be able to solo the snare bottom mic if you want. So I've got to bear that in mind as I'm mixing, that I'm not mixing to some, I'm mixing essentially for tracks. Individual samples. So I don't want to do too extreme stuff that sort of paints you into a corner with sort of your staples of a kit sound, so your close mics and things. Where I can get a bit more adventurous is stuff like the versed. Used a versed mic, which is a position over the bass drum pointing at the snare, and you sort of get an overall central image of the kit. I've got 451s on the hi-hat and ride. Close rooms. Far rooms. Right, that's kit 1. Kit 2. Kit 2 is in the big band configuration, 14 and 18-inch toms, a 24-inch kick, and a 14 by 6.5-inch Ludwig snare. 24-inch bass drum. That's a 14 by 10 rack tom and an 18-inch floor. Now, in this particular session, I remember it. This is one of the joys of sampling. Hear that? Very easy to miss. I know that because I missed it in the session. What is that I hear you say? So on AKG 451s, they have a screwable in capsule. And occasionally the little bastards get a bit grimy. So what I actually did was I re-recorded that cymbal, so that cymbal is totally gone. Kit 3 is the progressive jazz configuration. 12 and 14-inch toms, a 20-inch kick drum, and a 14x5 Delray snare. So the idea is, with all of this, that you're going to be able to just put up the faders to unity. In fact, with all of my instruments, faders at unity in any kind of combination. So you can just go, ooh, that's nice. Or you could just have just the extinct. And go, oh, that sounds like a pleasing sound. So you can make all these combinations of stuff. That's the goal. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it feel realistic. And when making sample instruments, you've got a balance between sort of trying to recreate the instrument using lots of different audio files. So obviously every time we hit a drum, even if it sounds sort of the same, it's different, slightly different. So if I go to the snare drum, for example, like if I go, there's slight differences there. And so as we're playing, I use a thing called round robins, which is where it will go around. So if you played the same velocity every single time, it would hit that top velocity and it would still sound like a drummer playing. Now, the other thing we've got to bear in mind is that we're streaming live audio off a hard drive. So we've got to make it efficient. So I don't want to include like thousands and thousands of round robins when in reality you're not going to notice the difference. And so I've got a number of velocities that I like to use, and those two things in combination, I think we can make something that sounds really realistic. Then there were the additional drums, a 10-inch tom, a couple of different snares, an 18-inch kick. I also made a kit out of snare drums. And recorded an oversized kit of a 27-inch kick drum and a 15-inch snare that I made. Pretty good, isn't it? This is in Dream Kit Zenith. If you go to double toms, it's the last like minor third, I think. When I was doing drum heads, I bought a thing called a slip roller, which is where you can roll circles, cylinders. And at some point I was like, I quite fancy a 15-inch snare. So I made a 15-inch snare. I have a hard pan the overheads. That's a cool cymbal. I like that cymbal. Now also what I wanted to do with these instruments is include a lot of treatments that I would use for stuff. So I've got like detuned or muffled snare drums. Oh man, you know what? 414 EBs doesn't get much better as overheads. For me, like every time I've used them on drum overheads, it's been like one of those things where you're like, yeah, that's it. That's the one. Got my Gretsch tuned down. Oh, that's some little 12-inch hi-hats. That drum sounds amazing. There's also lots of concert toms. There's a lot here. 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, that's a nice sounding drum. 16, very nice. 18. They didn't actually Well, they made them for Phil Collins. They made an 18-inch floor tom for concert tom for Phil Collins, but I don't think it was part of the catalogue. I also took my bass drum and made like a kind of gong bass drum kind of thing. We've still got to mix these. None of these are mixed. Have a listen to them with the Extinct. I think they sound great. That's nice. Muffled. Yeah, have a listen to like the 13. Have a listen in the EBs. Sounds so good. I love 4-on-4 EBs. So these catalogue kits will exist in the final instrument, but as presets. Then I went back the following year. I thought it was 2023. It was 2022. To do the reamping for Dream Kit Zenith, but also to record more drums. I settled on my 22-inch kick drum.